Malik had just finished his last class of the day, and the school bell echoed through the empty hallways as he slung his backpack over his shoulders. The day had been long, full of lessons and small annoyances, and all he wanted now was to get home, have a quick snack, and maybe play a little video game before starting his homework. The streets weren't crowded at this hour, and the golden glow of the late afternoon sun made everything feel calm and almost peaceful. Malik liked these walks. They gave him time to think, to daydream, and to enjoy a moment of freedom. He was halfway down the street, his headphones in, listening to some soft music, when he noticed the roar of motorcycles in the distance. At first he didn't pay much attention, thinking they were just some bikers passing by. But as the engines grew louder and the sound of leather boots hitting the pavement echoed closer, Malik felt a knot of unease form in his stomach. He tried to shake it off. People rode motorcycles all the time. It wasn't a big deal. Then he saw them. A group of men on large, loud bikes pulled up near the diner across the street. Their leather jackets had patches with symbols and words that made them look even more intimidating. One of the bikers, a big man with a long beard and dark sunglasses, spotted Malik immediately. He nudged the biker next to him and pointed at Malik, laughing loudly. The laughter was harsh, cruel even, and Malik felt a chill run down his spine. "Look at this little guy," the man shouted, his voice carrying across the street. "What are you even doing out here, huh? You lost or something?" His tone wasn't playful. It was meant to embarrass and intimidate. Malik's heart started beating faster and he tried to ignore him, walking a bit faster. He didn't want trouble, he just wanted to get home. But the biker wasn't done. He took a step closer, towering over Malik, and sneered. "You think you belong here? You look like you just crawled out of some daycare." People on the street glanced over, some shaking their heads, some pretending not to notice. Malik felt every eye on him, some judging, some just curious. His cheeks burned and he wished he could disappear. He tried to keep walking, telling himself that ignoring them was the best option. He clenched his fists inside his jacket pockets, trying not to cry, trying not to panic. But the man followed, his voice growing louder. "Hey, don't walk away from me, kid. I'm talking to you." Malik's steps quickened. He wanted to get past them, get home, and forget this ever happened. But the biker blocked his way, laughing again, making Malik stumble slightly. He looked around for help, but the street seemed empty. Nobody was close enough to intervene. He felt completely alone. What Malik didn't know was that someone was watching the entire scene unfold. Inside the diner, sitting at a small corner table, was John Cena. He had just finished a long day of training and work, and had decided to treat himself to a cup of coffee. Cena had come to this neighborhood often, enjoying the quiet streets and simple diners when he had time off. Today was no different, and he had no idea that he was about to witness something that would demand his attention. Through the window, Cena noticed the biker mocking the young boy. He could see the fear on Malik's face, the way his shoulders tensed, the way he tried to make himself smaller to avoid notice. Cena's instincts kicked in immediately. He had seen bullying before in many forms, and he knew that this situation could escalate quickly if left unchecked. He didn't want to overreact, but he couldn't just sit there either. Cena put down his coffee, adjusted his jacket, and started walking toward the door. Malik had no idea that someone so powerful and recognizable was about to step into the situation. He kept walking, head down, trying to ignore the biker, but he felt trapped. The biker's laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls of nearby buildings, making Malik's stomach twist in knots. As Cena reached the sidewalk, he observed the biker closely. The man was trying to intimidate Malik with his size and voice, but Cena could see the cracks in his confidence. He could see that the biker's bravado was all show, and he knew that if approached the right way, the situation could be resolved without violence. Cena's presence wasn't threatening, but it was commanding, something that made people instinctively pay attention. Malik noticed Cena approaching and froze. He didn't know who this man was at first, and for a moment, he worried that things might get worse. But there was something about Cena's walk, his calm but firm expression, that made Malik feel a little safer. It was a strange feeling to see someone step in quietly and confidently without raising their voice, but it gave him hope. The biker, still unaware of who was walking toward him, continued his mocking. "You think you're tough, huh? Look at you shaking like a little kid," he said, pointing at Malik. The man laughed, but his laughter now had a hint of uncertainty. There was something different about the person approaching, something that made him hesitate. Cena stopped a few feet away from the pair. He didn't yell, he didn't threaten. He just stood there, calm, observing, letting his presence speak for itself. His eyes met Malik's and he gave him a slight nod, a silent message that he wasn't alone and that it would be okay. Malik's heart started to slow down a little. For the first time in minutes, he felt a sense of relief. The biker, finally noticing Cena, stopped laughing abruptly. He squinted, trying to figure out who this man was. Recognition didn't come immediately, but Cena's calm, strong stance made it clear that this was not someone to be messed with. The biker's confident grin faltered slightly, and for the first time, Malik saw the man hesitate. Cena's voice finally broke the silence. "Hey, why don't you show some respect?" he said, simple and firm. The words were not loud or angry, but they carried weight. The biker blinked, taken aback. Nobody had spoken to him like that before, especially not in a calm tone that made it clear he wasn't afraid. Malik watched, amazed, as the situation began to change. The fear and embarrassment he had felt just moments ago didn't disappear completely, but it started to fade. The presence of someone willing to stand up for him made a huge difference. He realized that he didn't have to face this alone, and that even a small act of intervention could shift the balance of power in moments like these. The biker's laughter had completely stopped. He looked at Cena, trying to regain his composure, but the confidence wasn't there anymore. Malik took a cautious step forward, feeling safer, feeling stronger just by having someone on his side. The street, which had felt suffocating a few minutes ago, now seemed a little less intimidating. Cena didn't move closer aggressively. He simply positioned himself in a way that made it clear the biker couldn't intimidate Malik without consequences. There was no shouting, no physical threat, just presence and calm authority. Malik felt a strange sense of admiration, realizing that courage sometimes didn't need to be loud. It could be quiet and strong, and it could protect others in ways he hadn't understood before. Passers-by began to notice the change too. Some stopped and watched, sensing that something unusual was happening. The energy on the street shifted. What had started as a frightening confrontation was now a moment of tension where the outcome depended not on fear, but on respect. Malik's mind raced, thinking about how different this felt compared to every other time someone had tried to humiliate him. He realized that help could come from unexpected places, and that standing up for someone didn't always require shouting or anger. It could be as simple as showing up and refusing to let injustice continue. The biker shifted uncomfortably, mumbling under his breath. Malik, though still cautious, felt the first spark of hope he had experienced all day. Cena's quiet confidence had given him something important, the feeling that he mattered, that his dignity was worth protecting. As the moment stretched on, Malik's shoulders relaxed a little. He wasn't completely safe yet, but he knew that someone was there to help. The fear that had weighed on him like a heavy stone began to lift. Replaced by the faint but growing warmth of relief and gratitude, Cena stood there, silent but commanding, waiting for the right moment to guide the situation toward resolution. Malik looked at him and felt a deep sense of reassurance. He wasn't alone, and that alone made all the difference in the world. The street felt tense, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Malik stayed frozen for a moment, unsure of what would happen next. The biker was still standing in front of him, but his earlier confidence had vanished. Now he seemed to be measuring the man who had just walked onto the sidewalk. John Cena's presence had changed everything. His calm but firm stance, the way he looked at the biker without fear, made it clear that this was no ordinary confrontation. Malik tried to focus on the ground, hoping that if he didn't make eye contact, the biker would leave. But the man's attention was entirely on Cena now. The biker's fist clenched slightly and he shifted from foot to foot, trying to act tough, but it wasn't working. Malik could feel his heart pounding in his chest, a mix of relief and nervousness. He didn't fully understand who Cena was yet, but he could feel the power and confidence radiating from him. Cena didn't move aggressively. He simply took a few steps closer, his eyes never leaving the biker's face. His voice, calm and steady, cut through the tension. "You don't need to do this," he said. "There's no reason to make someone else feel small. You can walk away right now." The biker laughed nervously, trying to cover up his unease. "Who do you think you are, man? You can't tell me what to do." His voice cracked slightly at the end, betraying the doubt he was trying to hide. Malik noticed it immediately. He had seen bullies before, and he knew that when someone's confidence falters, their aggression often fades too. Cena took another step closer. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten. He simply looked the biker in the eye, unwavering. "I'm just someone who believes that everyone deserves respect," he said. "And right now you're choosing to disrespect someone who hasn't done anything to you." Malik felt a small wave of courage wash over him. Just being near Cena, seeing the way he stood, made him feel safer. He straightened his shoulders slightly, though he still didn't speak. He wasn't sure if he could find the words, but he felt stronger just knowing someone was there to protect him. The biker's laughter had completely faded now. He looked around as if searching for support from his friends, but they had stopped laughing and were watching in silence. The energy of the group had shifted. What had started as a display of intimidation was now a moment of hesitation and uncertainty. Cena's voice remained calm, but it carried weight. "You don't have to prove anything by hurting someone smaller than you," he said. "You can walk away and still be respected, or you can stay here and look foolish in front of everyone." Malik watched the biker carefully. He could see the uncertainty in the man's eyes, the way he shifted his weight, the tension in his shoulders. The biker had built himself up as a figure of fear, but now facing Cena, that fear was reflected back at him. It was a strange and powerful moment for Malik to witness. The biker took a deep breath and muttered something under his breath. Cena didn't flinch. He just waited, giving the man a chance to make the right choice. Malik noticed that Cena wasn't pushing him, wasn't trying to humiliate him back. He was simply standing there, calm and strong, letting the biker realize the consequences of his own actions. For Malik, it was a lesson in courage. He had been scared just moments ago, but now he could see how strength didn't always come from size or aggression. Sometimes it came from standing firm, speaking with calm authority, and refusing to let fear dictate the situation. He took a small step forward, testing the waters, feeling braver just by observing Cena. The biker's friends exchanged nervous glances. They had come to intimidate Malik, but they hadn't expected this. Cena's reputation, his presence, and the calm power he projected had changed everything. They looked unsure, hesitant, realizing that the situation was no longer under their control. Finally, the biker spoke, his voice lower and less confident than before. All right, whatever," he said, his tone dismissive but shaky. It was clear he was trying to save face, but it was also clear he had no intention of continuing the confrontation. Cena nodded slightly, not celebrating, not mocking, just acknowledging the end of the immediate threat. Malik let out a small breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Relief washed over him, and for the first time in minutes he felt a sense of safety. Cena had intervened, but he had done so without anger, without escalating the situation, and that had made all the difference. Malik noticed that Cena was looking at him now, giving him a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay," Cena said softly. "You're safe now. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are." Malik nodded, trying to find his voice. "Thank you," he whispered. The words felt small compared to the relief he felt, but they were sincere. Cena's presence had given him a sense of hope he hadn't expected. The biker and his friends mounted their motorcycles and left slowly, casting nervous glances back. The roar of the engines faded down the street, leaving a quiet calm in their wake. Malik felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, awe, and a lingering tension from the encounter. He realized that the world could be harsh, but there were also people willing to step in when it mattered most. Cena stayed with him for a moment longer, ensuring that Malik felt safe. "Where are you headed?" he asked gently. Malik pointed toward the street leading home. Cena nodded. "I'll walk with you a little bit just to make sure you get past this block safely." Malik felt a warmth in his chest, grateful for the simple act of walking with him. It wasn't just protection, it was a message that someone cared. As they walked together, Cena spoke softly. "You don't have to let fear control you," he said. "There will always be people who try to put you down, but you can choose to rise above it. Stand tall, even when it's hard. People respect courage, not just strength." Malik listened, absorbing every word. He felt a spark of confidence, realizing that courage wasn't about fighting back with anger. It was about standing firm and knowing your worth. The streets were quieter now, the sun dipping lower toward the horizon. Shadows stretched long across the pavement, but Malik felt lighter, less burdened by fear. Cena walked beside him, a steady presence guiding him through the remainder of the block. They passed a few neighbors who waved, unaware of the drama that had just unfolded. Malik realized that life went on, and people often didn't notice the small battles that happened every day. When they reached the end of the block, Cena stopped. "You're going to be okay from here," he said. "Just remember what we talked about. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You have the right to be treated with respect." Malik nodded, a smile breaking across his face for the first time since the encounter began. "I will," he said, his voice stronger than he expected. Cena gave him one last nod and turned to leave. Malik watched him walk away, feeling a mixture of awe and gratitude. He knew he would never forget this day, the fear, the relief, and the courage he had witnessed. More importantly, he knew he would carry this lesson with him, using it to face challenges in the future with confidence. As Malik continued home, his steps were lighter. He thought about how the biker had tried to make him feel small, and how one person's calm courage had changed everything. He realized that the world could be intimidating, but it could also surprise you with moments of kindness and protection. For Malik, today had been a lesson in bravery, dignity, and the power of standing up for what's right, even when it seems impossible. The sun had almost disappeared behind the buildings, casting a soft, fading light over the neighborhood. Malik walked past familiar houses, feeling different somehow, not because the streets had changed, but because he had. The fear that had weighed him down earlier had lifted, replaced by a quiet confidence and a newfound understanding of courage. By the time he reached his front door, Malik felt like a small but significant part of something bigger. The world could be harsh, but it could also be full of unexpected heroes, and sometimes all it took was one person stepping in to remind you that you were never truly alone. Malik unlocked his door, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The encounter would stay with him for a long time, shaping how he saw the world and how he would respond to challenges in the future. He knew now that courage wasn't just for the famous or the strong, it was for anyone willing to stand up for what's right and help those who couldn't defend themselves. Malik had finally reached the small park at the corner of his street. He paused for a moment, leaning against a lamppost, trying to calm his racing heart. Just a few minutes ago, he had been terrified, unsure of what would happen next. Now he felt a strange mixture of relief and awe. He kept thinking about the man who had stepped in, how calm and firm he had been. How could one person change everything so quickly? Malik couldn't stop replaying the moment in his head, feeling the weight of the lesson even as he tried to catch his breath. John Cena walked beside him, still keeping a steady, calm presence. He didn't need to speak, and yet the silence between them was comforting. Malik realized that courage wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was simply being there, standing firm and refusing to let fear win. Cena's example made Malik feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: safety. It was a rare, comforting feeling that gave him strength he hadn't known he had. Cena glanced at him and said softly, "You know, people often mistake loudness for power, but real strength is staying calm when others try to push you around." Malik nodded, listening intently. He tried to imagine what it would be like to act that way, to be calm and strong even when someone was trying to intimidate him. It wasn't easy to picture, but seeing it in real life made it feel possible. As they continued walking, Malik noticed that the streets felt different. He noticed the small details he had never paid attention to before. The way the leaves rustled in the evening breeze, the soft hum of distant traffic, the faint smell of food from the diner across the street. Normally, he would have been too focused on getting home to notice anything. But now, with a sense of safety and a growing confidence, the world felt alive and detailed. Cena spoke again. "You've got to remember that fear is natural. Everyone feels it sometimes, but it doesn't have to control you. The choice is always yours, to let it take over or to face it and keep going." Malik thought about the biker, about the way his anger and laughter had tried to take over the moment. He realized that if Cena hadn't stepped in, he might have stayed frozen in fear. But now he understood that fear didn't have to be permanent. It could be faced, and even small steps could make a difference. Malik swallowed hard and said, I think I understand. It's just hard to stay calm when someone yells at you or tries to scare you." Cena smiled gently. "I know, that's why having someone there with you helps. And one day you might be that someone for someone else. That's how courage spreads, one act at a time." Malik considered this. The idea that courage could be shared, passed from one person to another, made him feel powerful in a way he hadn't felt before. They stopped near a small bench in the park. Malik sat down, still catching his breath while Cena leaned against the edge of the bench watching the quiet streets. For a few moments, there was no need to speak. The sun was almost gone, leaving a soft twilight over the neighborhood. The world seemed calm again, but Malik knew it had been a life lesson disguised as a frightening moment. Cena looked at him seriously. You've got to remember, respect is earned, not given, and one of the best ways to earn it is by standing up for yourself, even when it's hard. But it doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes it means holding your ground and letting someone see they're wrong. Malik nodded, repeating the words in his mind. He wanted to remember them. He wanted to live by them. Malik glanced around the park, noticing a few children playing on the swings. He thought about how vulnerable they must feel sometimes, how fear could affect them in ways he hadn't considered before. He realized that standing up for someone didn't always require being the strongest person physically. It required seeing the situation, understanding the fear, and acting in a way that made the moment safe. Cena had done exactly that. For Malik, the lesson was more than just about dealing with bullies. It was about life. There would always be challenges, people who tried to intimidate or belittle him. But how he responded would make all the difference. Courage, respect, and calmness could change the outcome of any moment. The biker had thought he had power over Malik, but Cena had shown that real power belonged to those who acted with integrity. Cena continued walking with him, matching Malik's pace as the evening shadows grew longer. Sometimes it's not about the other person at all, Cena said quietly. It's about you, about who you want to be and how you want to respond. You control that. Nobody else does. Malik thought about that deeply. It made sense. He had been caught in fear, letting the biker's words and actions affect him. But now, after witnessing Cena's example, he understood that he had control over his own reactions. That was a powerful thought. They approached Malik's street, where the familiar houses and lampposts greeted him like old friends. Malik felt a sense of calm he hadn't expected. The encounter with the biker, which had started as a frightening, humiliating moment, had transformed into a powerful lesson. He realized that fear could be turned into strength, that intimidation could be met with courage, and that even in the darkest moments, someone could appear to help. Cena stopped near the corner where Malik would turn toward his house. This is your block, he said. From here you know the streets. You've got this. Malik looked at him, gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you, he said again, more sincerely than before. I don't know how I would have handled that without you. Cena shook his head. You would have done fine. Courage isn't about never being scared. It's about moving forward even when you are. Malik felt a spark inside him, a new understanding of what it meant to be brave. He realized that bravery wasn't about showing off or being the strongest person in the room. It was about standing up for yourself and others, about choosing integrity over fear, and about acting in a way that made the world just a little bit safer and fairer. He started walking toward his house, his steps light but deliberate. The fear he had felt earlier had not disappeared entirely. It was still there as a quiet reminder, but it no longer controlled him. He felt more prepared for whatever challenges might come next, knowing that he could face them with courage and calmness. As he reached his front door, he looked back down the street, half expecting to see Cena still walking beside him, but the street was empty, quiet again. It was as if Cena had vanished, leaving only the lesson and the memory of his calm, firm presence. Malik smiled to himself, realizing that some acts of courage didn't require recognition. Some acts simply changed lives quietly, in ways that would last long after the moment had passed. Malik unlocked his door and stepped inside, closing it behind him. He leaned against it for a moment, breathing deeply, thinking about everything that had happened. The fear, the relief, the awe, and the lessons. It had all happened in such a short span of time, yet it had left a lasting impact. He realized that courage could be contagious, that seeing someone act with integrity could inspire others to do the same. He thought about the biker and how quickly his confidence had crumbled in the presence of someone who stood firm and calm. It was a powerful reminder that intimidation often relies on fear. When fear is met with courage, even the loudest bully can be silenced. Malik felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that he could carry that lesson forward in his own life. As Malik sat down on his bed, he reflected on the events of the day. He knew that the memory of Cena's presence would stay with him for a long time. It wasn't just about the immediate safety that had been provided. It was about understanding how courage worked, how respect worked, and how one person could change the course of a frightening moment. He made a promise to himself that night, to stand taller, to face fear with calmness, and to remember the lesson of integrity and courage he had witnessed. He understood that life would continue to bring challenges, but he now had a framework to handle them. Inspired by someone who had stepped in not with anger, but with quiet strength and firm resolve, Malik's heart felt lighter, his mind clearer. The world outside was still unpredictable, but he no longer felt powerless. He had seen what courage looked like, and he knew that he could embody it too. It was a lesson in life, in bravery, and in the quiet power of standing firm when the world tried to push you down. As he finally put his backpack down and began his homework, Malik smiled to himself, feeling a quiet pride and confidence. The day had started like any other, but it had ended with a powerful lesson that would shape who he was and how he faced the world. Courage, he realized, wasn't about being fearless, it was about moving forward even when you were. The next morning, Malik woke up feeling different. The sun streamed through his window, casting a warm light across his room, but it wasn't just the sunlight that made him feel lighter. It was the memory of yesterday, the lesson he had learned, and the courage he had seen in action. Even though he had been scared and humiliated the day before, he now carried something stronger with him, a sense of confidence and hope he hadn't had before. At breakfast, Malik's mind wandered to the encounter with the biker. He thought about the way the man had tried to intimidate him, the way his words had cut like knives, and how powerless he had felt. But then he remembered Cena, standing calmly, speaking firmly, and showing him that fear could be faced. He realized that courage wasn't about physical strength alone. It was about choosing to act rightly even when it's difficult. That thought stayed with him as he prepared for school. When Malik stepped outside, the streets looked the same as always, but he noticed small differences. The people walking by seemed smaller, less threatening somehow. He walked with a little more confidence, his shoulders straighter, and his head held higher. For the first time, he realized that perception mattered. How he carried himself could influence how others treated him. He remembered Cena's words about standing tall and respecting yourself, and he tried to embody that as he made his way to school. By the time Malik reached the corner near the diner, he saw the biker again, sitting on one of the motorcycles with his friends. For a moment, fear tried to creep back in, but Malik took a deep breath. He remembered Cena's example, the calm authority and quiet confidence that had shifted the power the day before. Malik decided he wouldn't let fear control him again. The biker noticed him and smirked, clearly trying to regain some sense of control. "Back again, huh?" he said, a hint of mockery in his voice. Malik stopped and looked him in the eye, holding his gaze for a brief moment before continuing on his way. He didn't speak, didn't argue, didn't show fear, and that simple act unsettled the biker. The man had expected to see hesitation or panic, but instead Malik's calm response showed that he wasn't an easy target. As Malik walked past, he felt a small surge of pride. He had faced the fear that had once felt overwhelming, and though the biker was still there, Malik felt in control of himself for the first time. He understood that courage wasn't about fighting or shouting. It was about maintaining your integrity and dignity, even in the face of intimidation. When Malik reached school, he shared a few moments with his friends. He didn't go into details about the encounter, but he could feel a change in himself, and they noticed it too. He was quieter but stronger, more aware of his surroundings and more confident in how he carried himself. Malik realized that the lesson he had learned wasn't just about yesterday. It was about how he would respond to challenges in the future. During lunch, Malik sat with a few classmates reflecting on the events in his mind. He thought about the biker, his words, his laughter, and the fear he had felt. Then he remembered Cena, and the way the man had walked up calmly, assessed the situation, and taken action without escalation. Malik realized that sometimes the right response wasn't anger or retaliation. It was calmness, presence, and integrity. That lesson felt more valuable than any school assignment or test he had faced. After school, Malik decided to take a different route home. He wanted to walk past the diner again, not because he sought confrontation, but because he wanted to see the street from a new perspective. As he walked, he noticed the subtle ways the neighborhood had changed in his eyes. The small cracks in the pavement, the flicker of a street lamp, The smell of bread from the bakery, all of it felt vivid and alive. He realized that courage didn't just change moments, it changed how you saw the world. When he reached the diner, he saw Cena again, standing outside, stretching after his morning workout. Malik's heart skipped a beat, surprised to see him. Cena waved, and Malik returned the wave shyly. Cena smiled, walking over. "Hey Malik," he said warmly. "How's your day going?" Malik smiled back, feeling a strange comfort in seeing him again. "Better," he replied. "I feel different, stronger." Cena nodded, clearly understanding. "Good," he said. "Remember, strength isn't just about muscles or size. It's about how you carry yourself, how you respond to challenges, and how you treat others. You're learning that fast." Malik felt a sense of pride. He realized that this wasn't just a lesson about facing bullies. It was a lesson about life, about being brave and about respecting yourself and others. Cena and Malik talked for a few minutes, walking along the street together. Cena offered advice about standing up for yourself without being aggressive, about choosing your battles, and about understanding that fear was natural but could be managed. Malik listened intently, absorbing every word. He realized that courage was something he could practice every day, in small ways, by making conscious choices to act rightly, even when scared. As they approached the corner near Malik's house, Cena stopped. "From here, you know the streets," he said. "You've got this." Malik nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and confidence. He realized that the true lesson wasn't just in the moment of confrontation. It was in how he would live his life moving forward. He understood now that fear could be faced, that dignity could be maintained, and that courage could be found in ordinary actions. Malik walked home, reflecting on the last 2 days. He thought about the fear, the intimidation, and the relief. He realized that courage wasn't about being unafraid, it was about acting despite fear. He remembered Cena's calm presence, his firm words, and his quiet strength. That image stayed with him, giving him a blueprint for how to handle challenges in the future. When Malik reached his house, he felt a new sense of calm and readiness. He knew that life would continue to present challenges, but he felt prepared to face them. He realized that the lessons he had learned yesterday and today weren't just for school or for dealing with bullies. They were for life. They were about resilience, integrity, and self-respect. As the evening approached, Malik thought about the biker again. He no longer felt fear or anger toward him. Instead, he felt a sense of understanding. The biker had tried to assert power through intimidation, but true strength, Malik realized, came from calmness, courage, and integrity. He had witnessed that strength firsthand, and it had left a lasting impression. Malik went to bed that night with a sense of peace. He reflected on the events of the last 2 days, the lessons he had learned, and the growth he had experienced. He knew that he would face challenges in the future, but he now had the tools to handle them with confidence and courage. He understood that fear was natural, but it could be managed, and that true strength was found in calm, deliberate action. He thought about Cena one last time before closing his eyes. The man had walked into his life at the perfect moment, providing guidance, protection, and a powerful example of courage. Malik knew that he would carry these lessons with him for years to come, applying them not just to difficult situations but to everyday life. He understood that bravery wasn't about grand gestures. It was about standing tall, acting with integrity, and choosing courage even when it's hard. As Malik drifted off to sleep, he felt a sense of hope and confidence he had never felt before. The encounter with the biker, which had begun as a moment of fear and humiliation, had transformed into a powerful lesson in courage, dignity, and self-respect. Malik knew that this experience would shape the way he approached life, giving him the strength to face challenges, help others, and grow into a confident, brave young man. The next few days passed with a quiet rhythm, but Malik noticed a change in himself that he couldn't ignore. The fear he had felt when the biker had first confronted him was gone, replaced by a calm awareness. He walked to school with his head held a little higher, noticed the small details of the neighborhood, and felt more confident around his classmates. He realized that courage was not something that appeared suddenly. It grew slowly, like a small plant nurtured over time through experiences and choices. Malik thought often about the day John Cena had stepped in. He didn't just remember the moment of confrontation, he remembered how Cena had handled it. He had been calm, firm, and deliberate, showing that strength could be quiet but still powerful. Malik wanted to carry that lesson with him in every part of his life. understanding that true courage wasn't just about standing up for yourself, but also about protecting others and choosing integrity over fear. At school, Malik shared small lessons with his friends without giving away the details of what had happened. He spoke about standing tall, respecting yourself, and not letting others intimidate you. His friends noticed a difference in him. He seemed stronger, more focused, and more grounded. Malik realized that courage could inspire others even in subtle ways. He didn't have to shout or show off. His confidence alone spoke volumes. One afternoon, Malik saw a younger student being teased near the playground. Without thinking too much, he walked over calmly and placed himself near the situation, just like he had seen Cena do. He didn't shout, he didn't push. He simply stood there and spoke in a firm, confident voice. "Hey, stop it," he said. The bullies hesitated, confused by his calm presence. Malik noticed the younger student's eyes widen with relief. Just as his own had felt a few days ago, Malik smiled slightly, understanding that he was passing on the lesson he had learned. Courage could be contagious. That evening, Malik walked home, reflecting on the week. The neighborhood felt familiar yet different. The streets were the same, but he saw them through new eyes. He noticed the sounds of the city, the distant hum of cars, children playing in the yards, neighbors chatting on porches. Everything seemed brighter, more alive. Malik realized that courage didn't just change how you faced challenges. It changed how you experienced the world. Fear had clouded his vision before, but now he could see clearly. Malik's parents noticed the change too. At dinner, they commented on how calm and confident he seemed, asking what had happened to make him so composed. Malik thought for a moment and replied simply, "I learned that fear doesn't have to control you. You can choose to face it and act right." His parents smiled, proud of the maturity and insight he had gained. Malik felt a warm sense of satisfaction, knowing that he was growing into a more courageous and thoughtful person. A few days later, Malik returned to the street where the biker had confronted him. He noticed the diner where Cena had been sitting, the corner where the encounter had happened, and even the faint scratches on the pavement where his feet had shuffled nervously. Malik smiled to himself. The fear that had once dominated this place no longer held any power over him. He could walk these streets confidently, knowing that he had faced the challenge and learned from it. Malik thought about the biker as well. He didn't feel anger or revenge. Instead, he felt a sense of understanding. People often act out of fear, insecurity, or the desire to feel powerful. The biker had tried to humiliate him, but he had failed because Malik had learned to stand firm. Malik realized that understanding people's weaknesses didn't excuse their actions, but it helped him respond with clarity rather than anger. Word about the encounter with the biker began to spread quietly through the neighborhood. Some neighbors mentioned it in passing, amazed that a young boy had stood his ground with such composure, and that someone like John Cena had been there to intervene. Malik didn't seek attention for it, but he felt proud of what had happened. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about the lessons learned and the confidence gained. One afternoon, Malik's school held an assembly about courage, kindness, and standing up against bullying. The principal spoke about how small acts of bravery could make a big difference in people's lives. Malik listened, thinking about his own experience. He realized that courage wasn't always dramatic or public. It was often quiet, personal, and impactful in ways that weren't immediately visible. He understood now that he could make a difference not just for himself but for others who might be struggling. Malik's confidence continued to grow. He began helping younger students, encouraging them to stand up for themselves, and each